Brenden Slaughter, Keenan Puncocher here from BeaversEdge.com, coming to you live from Husky Stadium, where Oregon State fell to Washington 24-21 here on Friday night. Oregon State lost on the last second field goal of sorts as the Huskies marched 97 yards down the field to put themselves in scoring position to close out the game. They did just that, and with that, Oregon State sees their three-game win streak snap, Keenan, and This game, it felt like it was there for Oregon State. We're obviously going to dive into the details of it all, but just what are kind of some of your first takeaways from this game? Again, Oregon State falls 24-21 here in Husky Stadium.
Yeah, it was wild night. We had as Jonathan Smith was saying in the press conference, apparently a monsoon coming in early in the week, and it was windy. Definitely windy tonight. Rain's actually coming down for the first time now all night.
Yeah, no rain during the game.
Rain,
shocking, right?
So I don't think the weather played as much of a factor, but it definitely did, and I think that will naturally lead people to question those red zone calls, where Oregon State was in pretty much field goal range. Maybe for both of them, certainly on the first one, and they elect to go for it on fourth down. We heard Jonathan Smith again in the presser talk about we're gonna err on the side of aggression there. So that was a clear choice to make. I think hindsight is just that, as we always say, because had Smith known that it would be really a last second game, whoever had the ball last would maybe win, maybe kick the ball in that situation. But I think that'll probably stand out a lot to people.
Yeah, I think, going back to that, it seemed like just from Jonathan's kind of mannerisms and whatnot, that if he could have that over again, probably would have taken a field goal on the second one. The first one, he still seemed pretty confident in that decision. Obviously they ran with Jack Coletto, came up short. That's Oregon State's bread and butter. That's who they are. Now, on the other way, the fourth down was a pass attempt.
Right.
And, again, I think they were, right about here, about the 15, 10-yard line. And, you look back at, field goal being a difference in this game. But beyond all that, Keenan, I think we also have to talk about just the fact that the two comparing and contrasting styles in this game. And honestly, do you think this outcome would have been different had that monsoon come in and Michael Penix would not have been able to throw for nearly as efficiently as he was?
Yeah, no, I do. I thought coming into this game it's going to come down to the quarterbacks who makes the smart choices.
Right.
With the rain, I thought we'd see a lot of running. Both teams, I'd say, kind of came out and did that, but then Washington definitely found their rhythm more in the second quarter. I think Penix had almost 50 passing attempts, so this is more of an air raid offense, and I think it helped them.
Yeah.
I think the lack of the rain, the wind, maybe it was interesting. They kind of flirted with the idea, at least in the presser, that the wind was a factor, maybe on some throws. I know we saw Bill Branson overthrow Gould on a pretty open route at the end.
Would be touchdown.
I don't know if the wind was necessarily that much of a factor. We saw some weird punts today too. That might have affected it, but
it was just like a very much of a wind tunnel in here today, and we got it up in the press box a little bit. And from the players, it sounded like it was swirling a little bit. We could kind of watch it from the flags now at the field goal post, which now aren't moving at all.
Quieter, yeah.
So go figure. Yeah, go figure, right? But more than anything, though, Keenan, continuing on those styles, obviously Oregon State has a great day on the ground, and that's still going to be something we talk about. Is Damian Martinez looks every bit of the stud that he's going to be, and I think he's Oregon State's next great running back, falling in that line. I think he got right near 100 yards. Don't have the stat sheet right in front of me. Deshaun Fenwick got obviously the 2 touchdowns. And just to talk about positives real quick, Easton Mascarenas, pick 6. It obviously got lost a little bit with the end result, but you talk about a young guy making a play for his team, and giving the Beavers that lead going into halftime. You really felt like the momentum was kind of heading towards Oregon State's way, but then we arrive at the real big problem of this game, Keenan, and we've been saying it since Chance Nolan went out. Ben Gulbranson's just not able to give as much the passing game as Chance Nolan is. And, that's not to say that he won't be or won't be in a few years, but, I think we saw, last week against Colorado, or 2 weeks ago, against Colorado, Colorado's a bad team, right? And I think you can get away with that. And even Washington State, you were at home. Defense played a great game on the road against a 6-win team, Keenan.
Yeah.
Washington at the end was like, we're going to dare Ben Gulbranson to beat us, and he couldn't do it. And I think that, we talked about it with Jonathan in the press conference, saying the need to get more quarterback play, Keenan, under 100 passing yards. That, under any circumstances, unless you're Air Force, is not going to get the job done. I think that's where Oregon State's biggest issue right now is, and this old adage that we've been saying for a couple weeks now just continues to reign true, where would Oregon State's record be if they had quality quarterback play all season long?
Oh, I agree. And I think it's interesting because, I remember standing with you at the Washington State game, and we were talking about how good the defense played. They pressured. It was constant pressure. We didn't see that tonight. And I think when you have to have one or the other, you either have to have great pressure, so that you can maybe breathe a little bit on offense, because then if you don't pass for even 100 yards, it's going to be very, very difficult. And we heard Jonathan in the presser again. Minus the pick six, the offense put up 14 points. And he said that's not going to win you many games in the Pac-12, and it's not, especially on the road. So it was there. It was for the taking. But yeah, the receivers, we heard Smith as well. Maybe a little bit, on them as well, not getting open, maybe on the quarterback, but it really sounded just like a combination of everything, where the passing game just really has a lot of work still to go.
Well, and the good news in that regard is that, Chance Nolan did return to practice this week. It's, feasible or theoretical that he could be a little bit closer next week, maybe even a chance. And, we talked about it in the post-game press conference just amongst us media members. There's a reason. He was named the starter coming out of fall camp. And, I think now when you have a game like this, before it was, hey, do you really want to make a change at quarterback? This guy's got a 3-game win streak. Now, if Chance is healthy, I don't think there's a debate anymore.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think because with the running game as strong as it is right now, you want to try to capitalize on it. And we all know that the best complement to a run game is also a good passing game, and vice versa. And so I think if we could get that, play action, as we were talking about upstairs, open a little bit more, I think that would really open up the run game even more. It would make people more comfortable. And we've talked about Gulbrandt. We talked about him today. A couple weeks ago against Utah, some of these plays that he, got maybe 3-yard gainers, maybe he took a sack, maybe he would have fumbled, maybe would have turned it over. I think he's being a little more careful with the ball.
He's growing.
You can see his progressions, but, I think about actually the sack that he took right over here, and it was bad. It kind of killed that momentum, and we were talking about before halftime too about how big that pick six was, because it really started to feel like things were going the Husky way.
Right.
And that was a big thing. Kind of, turned it around. We didn't even talk about it. There was a light delay.
Yeah.
The lights went out, and Smith and co kind of downplayed it. As I think they're supposed to. I don't think it really impacted the teams, but it's just another little, kind of a note on the game. It was an unusual game at times.
And I think the other thing that I just want to point out to this is, how much emphasis, Keenan, is that quarterback spot, and we'll go ahead and wrap up on this. Again, Oregon State falls to Washington 24-21 here in Husky Stadium. Brenden Slaughter, Keenan Puncocher coming to you live from Husky Stadium Field. I'm just kind of curious, though, Keenan, now that we've kind of seen all of this play out, and we saw, Washington make throws tonight, despite the conditions. And, you go back to last year, Oregon State obviously went, 7-6, made the bowl game, and, got to the LA Bowl. But the biggest thing with Oregon State last year, they're one-dimensional, right? And you saw what happened in the LA Bowl, and I think it was a great, microcosm of the season. Running game slows down, force the Beavers to pass. Last year, that was the real big Achilles heel for this team. Early in the year, it didn't look quite that way, Keenan. I think back to like that Fresno State game where they went toe-to-toe with Jake Haener. I think about even the Montana State game to an extent, maybe even the USC game. We had some moments. Obviously Chance Nolan had some interceptions, but I just think that we're still arriving at that same, it's cliche to say, but the most important position on offense seems to be holding Oregon State back right now.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. And I think that while it's unfortunate, I think it is fair. And so, even we saw Coletto come out multiple times tonight. I don't think he ever took a snap at quarterback, and that's not really his role. So, I think there's progress, there's progression. As you said, a couple of years from now, that Gulbrandt could be the guy. He could be really good. And I just think too, with
he's getting valuable experience this year.
Yeah,
that's true.
Valuable experience, and the Beavers though they want to win now. They want to win. They're hot. They're, I think this is kind of a blow to the momentum that was happening, and I think that we'll kind of see that.
You could tell in the post game.
Yeah.
I mean, Jake Levengood and Omar Spates, who you'll see in our post game interviews, those guys were down.
Yeah.
And
this
one hurt.
A member asked, how's the locker room, and they said it's hard right now.
It's bad.
I think this one hurts.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah, and I think it hurts for a variety of reasons. And again, we'll be breaking it down. Obviously, Brenden and Keenan will be uploading stuff BeaversEdge.com. Make sure to stay tuned for that later this evening and obviously into tomorrow. So again, Oregon State falls to Washington 24-21 here at Husky Stadium. Beavers 3-game win streak snap. They fall to 6-3 overall, now 3-3. And Keenan, unfortunately, that ranking didn't last very long.
No, sadly.
Tough.
Maybe
Tough.
it is an omen. Maybe we shouldn't have been, but
Tough.
yeah, it's nice while it lasted, but I think there's more to that because it shows the progression that the team has made, and we'll get there. It's going to continue to get better, I think. It's been a good season regardless.
So far,
This is a stinger.
But the opportunity to get, at least, in the ballpark, you've got 2 very winnable games, I think, in in Cal, and Arizona State up next, and then, anything can happen in the Civil War.
That's absolutely right.
It's going to be interesting to see how all that shakes out. So again, stay locked to BeaversEdge.com. Keenan and I will have coverage of this game and the reaction as well from the players and coaches. So again, for Keenan Puncocher and Brenden Slaughter signing off from Husky Stadium, Oregon State falls to Washington 24-21.